Case studies. In previous chapters, we've seen some examples of games, events, and teams. In this chapter, we'll be taking a closer look at some examples of eSports organizations and what makes them successful. Specific examples are a great way to learn more about an industry as it helps to see the theories and facts being put into practice. In this chapter, we'll be exploring a specific eSports event which has had a lot of success over the years and precisely how it's achieved this. We'll be looking at who is behind the event and what they gain out of it. You'll be able to see the work that goes into a successful eSports event and how long-lasting success can be achieved with the right methods. The chapter will also be covering a particular organization which has now been in the eSports industry for a long time. You'll see why the organization was founded, what its values are, and how much it has changed over the years as the industry has changed around it. This is a great chance to learn about the structure of an eSports organization and what it takes for an organization to be successful. We'll also be taking a closer look at a particular team within the world of eSports and how they've built their success around several different games. We'll see how a team was founded, how it rose to the top, and what it does to stave off the competition from its rivals. We'll also be looking at how much money the team makes, whether it's from prize money, sponsorships, or other means. Finally, the chapter will be going into detail on a particular game that has made waves in the world of eSports. Games are the backbone of eSports, and there is a lot of variety for fans to choose from. Some are much better suited towards eSports than others though, and that's usually through design rather than by accident. This chapter will cover the game development process and what it takes for a game to become an eSports sensation. You'll see why players are more important than revenue and just how much money a popular game can make when tailored towards a specific community. Event case study, the Intel Extreme Masters. The Intel Extreme Masters were started by the Electronic Sports League in 2007. Sponsored by Intel, the computer processor manufacturer, the event was created as a way to establish one of the first worldwide eSports competitions. Intel had been sponsoring a tournament held in Europe each year by ESL, but wanted to expand the competition into the North American market. Originally, the event only featured the game Counter-Strike, but soon more games were added. By the 5th season of the competition, 4 different games were played and teams could enter players into each of the games. Today, the tournament features 3 main games. These are Counter-Strike 1.6, StarCraft 2, and League of Legends. Qualifying events are held all over the world throughout the year, with the finals of the Intel Extreme Masters held at a new location each year. The Intel Extreme Masters is the longest running eSports tournament and is also one of the biggest independent events that isn't run by a game publisher. The event is sponsored by Intel, and this is where a large part of its revenue comes from. In 2018, Intel signed a 3-year deal with ESL worth $100 million. This deal sees Intel providing all of the computers and technology used at ESL's eSports events. ESL also plans to launch new events, including a new tournament in China to expand its global reach. 2019's Intel Extreme Masters tournament saw record-breaking numbers in both attendance and viewing figures. An incredible 174,000 fans turned up to watch the finals at Spodek Arena over the course of 2 weekends. The event also saw an incredible 232 million total online viewers and a record of 20 million viewers on a single day. The 2019 Intel Extreme Masters featured a prize pool of more than $2 million paid out across several different games. While the event is usually available for fans to watch across multiple platforms, ESL has signed exclusive media rights deals with Facebook Video for its other events. For now, the Intel Extreme Masters remains available across lots of different streaming sites, including YouTube, Twitch, and many more. This availability is a large part of the big viewing figures that the events regularly bring in. The Counter-Strike event is one of the most popular competitions at the Intel Extreme Masters. For 2019, it achieved support from the game developers. This gave it an official major title and made it an official tournament on the Counter-Strike competitive circuit. This event drew in a peak of 1,194,000 viewers and an average of over 800,000 viewers per match. This is a significant increase in viewership from the year before, which saw a peak of around 500,000 viewers and an average of around 400,000 viewers per match. Overall, the Counter-Strike Major brought in close to 200 million online viewers who collectively watched an incredible 126 million hours of content. The 2019 Intel Extreme Masters also saw professional women's eSports teams in the spotlight as the tournament held the Intel Women's Challenge to find the best women's Counter-Strike team. Qualifiers for the event took place across Europe, Asia, North America, and South America and gave a chance for women to compete at the highest level. These kinds of initiatives help to inspire more women to take up professional gaming, a sport that hasn't always been so inclusive.
This is one of the most ancient of all pursuits. To be the best. Humans have been trying to do it in every facet of life for as long as we have breathed air, and now we stand here in the Spodek, 10,000 in the stands. Million is the number being thrown around just yesterday in the semis, and now a major final. Let's get it on!
Organization Case Study: the World eSports Association. One of the most important organizations in any sport is the governing body. As we covered in a previous chapter, every major sport has its own governing body and a unified set of rules that helps to make things clear for fans, teams, and competitors to understand. For eSports to become globally recognized as a sport, it needs to have its own governing body that will help to set rules and conditions for tournaments and players. The World eSports Association, WESA, is an attempt to fix the general mess in the esports industry and unite the game's publishers, events, and country federations all under one banner. According to the official website of the organization, WESA's view is to create an authentic framework to support and amplify sustainable growth of esports based on the shared values of fairness, transparency, and integrity, and sharing that growth between the players, teams, and leagues. The organization was set up in 2016 and was created by ESL, the largest esports event organizer outside of games publishers. ESL also set up WESA with the support and help from several prominent professional esports teams. These teams include Fnatic, G2 Esports, Splice, and FaZe Clan. Having multiple teams involved in the setup of the organization was important for ESL as they wanted the WESA to provide support and help improve conditions for players. Having the input of professional esports is important for any governing body, and WESA now has its own Players' Council to advocate for improvements. While WESA certainly isn't the first organization to attempt to unify the sport, it has the best chance of success thanks to its backing from several high-profile teams and the fact that it was established by ESL. Since its creation in 2016, WESA has helped to establish unified rules for Counter-Strike tournaments under ESL with input from players on the rules, how profits are shared out, and scheduling of the competition. Player representation is an important part of any sport, as it helps prevent competitors from being taken advantage of their talents. An organization such as this, which values the inputs from players and uses their feedback to improve conditions for all players, is a big step in the right direction for the professionalization of esports. According to ESL CEO and current board member of WESA, Ralf Reichert, every sport grows in a very anarchic way. That is especially true for esports. In the past, the business relationships between teams, players, and leagues have been fairly informal. What we are doing with this is formalizing it and trying to make it professional. Future goals of WESA are to have other leagues adopting rules and regulations set up by the organization. So far, the governing body only controls what happens at ESL tournaments, and that's something that needs to change if esports is to continue to grow. The organization also aims to tackle issues such as gambling, doping, and cheating. Esports has a great opportunity to learn from the mistakes of traditional sports and avoid some of these issues from taking root by setting regulations early on. One of the key figures helping the WESA to clean the esports industry is Pietro Fringhelli, a lawyer who has worked as a league commissioner for the German Bundesliga. Fringhelli understands sports and the importance of regulations and can be an important factor in helping to make esports more attractive for fans and sponsors. Team Case Study. Team Liquid. Team Liquid is one of the most successful esports team in the world and has ranked as the #1 team for earnings in the world since 2017, earning more than $30 million since it was founded. The group first began as a group of like-minded gamers way back in the year 2000. While esports was barely a fledgling sport at the time, Liquid was around since the very beginning. Starting as a forum for players to discuss StarCraft, the players involved in the forum began to play together and compete against other players. What started out as a hobby soon became a profession for many of these players. When StarCraft 2 was launched in 2010, the group turned fully pro. Team Liquid's first sponsor came from software company Little App Factory and allowed the team to pay its players a salary and enter into tournaments around the world. Although the team initially focused on StarCraft, a strategy game, Liquid was since built a solid reputation for success across more than 14 different games. These include shooters like Call of Duty and Rainbow Six Siege, and games such as Rocket League and League of Legends. Over time, Team Liquid gained success in tournaments around the world and gradually built a strong online following. They also attracted the attention of many sponsors, including HTC and Monster Energy drinks. Later on, the team would pick up big sponsorship deals from the likes of computer manufacturer Alienware and car manufacturer Honda. In 2016, the majority stake of Team Liquid was sold to entertainment and sports management company Axiomatic. From this point on, Team Liquid has aimed to become more than just an eSports team. The team has started its own video production company, which aims to produce creative commercial content and documentary-style films to educate people on what goes on in the eSports industry. Team Liquid also owns Liquipedia, a wiki network that covers topics across all of eSports. As far as eSports teams go, Team Liquid certainly breaks the mold, and this full-on approach to the industry has helped it to become the most successful team of all time. Team Liquid regularly competes in the biggest tournaments around the world and have players from all over the globe representing them. This continued success across multiple games has meant that Team Liquid is the most watched esports team in the world. In 2019, fans of the team racked up over 124 million hours of viewing the team's matched and content. Part of the reason for the team's continued success has been the focus on building a working team of great players rather than focusing on individual talent. All of Team Liquid's players are extraordinarily talented, of course, but they are hired by the team due to how well they work with the current roster. Members of Team Liquid are also able to develop strategies and hone their skills at the team's purpose-built Alienware training facility provided by one of their key sponsors. Salaries for Team Liquid can depend on how long players have been in the team, the game they play, and recent success. Base salaries for the team's Dota 2 players range between $100,000 and $200,000, although performance bonuses can significantly boost this.
Hey, what's up guys? It's Steve with Team Liquid. I'm the co-CEO and I'm going to show you guys the Alienware training facility where Team Liquid works out of. Come on in. One of the things that most people don't really see when they're watching all of our players and our athletes compete at all these competitions around the world is that it requires all of the staff that's kind of the engine, the power behind making all of this magic happen. We have these separate pods where everybody kind of works out of. We still need a little bit of privacy, so that's why we decided to do these war rooms. So this first one is our Dota war room, which showcases our Dota team that won the International in 2017 for their share of $25 million. This next room is our League of Legends room. So our League of Legends team just won the North American Championship, which is just awesome after 6 years. As you can see here, the star-studded roster with Doublelift and Impact and Ole and Pobelter. And finally, this is the CSGO room. So CSGO is one of those tried and true esports. It's one of the biggest viewerships, and so we decided to dedicate an entire war room to them. So as you can see here, we have the mural of Dust 2, and we're continuing that by painting the mural actually inside the office. So we're here in the TL kitchen, and if you come over here, we also have our CSGO room. This is where they scrim out of. So they're actually in practice right now, so you can just take a little tiny peek. We decided to build a kitchen in the facility. When I talk to players and I ask them their #1 thing on why they want to go to a certain team, they say food. They want really good food. So we decided to hire one of the best chefs that we could find, Manny, and he actually prepares 2 meals a day, 5 days a week for all of the guys to consume. He does all of the custom things for each player as it's needed, and this guy is the bomb. The food is so good. This is where we do all of the post review. This is where they're learning about the game, they're watching the game. So one of the cool things about this is that we have a touch screen. So the coach can come up, and while they're talking to all the players, they can really specify what's going on in the game. So they might say, hey, this champion here or this minion over here, make sure that you position over here in a certain team fight. And it really just captures the essence and helps retain that image with the athletes in their memory, so when they're on stage, hopefully do the right thing. This is 1UP Studios. 1UP Studios is one of the best production houses in esports. So this is where we create all of the content around all of our teams and players. Over here is the recording studio. In the recording studio, this is where we film all of the content. It's where we do skits, we have a backdrop, we have a projection screen, and we're able to capture all the footage. Behind me, you'll see these editing bays. This is where all of the post-production and editing process happens. It's where all the VFX work and all the graphics work, and then on-the-fly edits before it goes live. And then in this main office area, this is where all of the 1UP staff currently work at. One of the cool things about 1UP is that all of our staff, they're gamers, they get it. So guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for coming on this tour with me. This has been amazing. The Alienware training facility, we have put so much work into becoming one of the best esports organizations in the world, and this is where that magic happens. So I'm gonna have to say farewell, goodbye, see ya. We gotta train, we gotta win. Get out of here.
Game case study, League of Legends. We've already mentioned League of Legends a few times in this course, but as it's one of the most influential games in the esports industry over the last few years, it's worth taking a closer look. League of Legends is a MOBA, or multiplayer online battle arena game. It was developed by Riot Games back in 2009 and was the studio's first ever game. What started out as a fairly simple idea eventually transformed into a game with over $1 billion in yearly revenue and the biggest esports game of all time. Riot Games was founded by Brandon Beck and Mark Merrill, two former businesses classmates at Southern California University. They wanted to create a video game company that focused on player feedback and evolved over time to answer the needs of the player base. Neither of Riot Games' founder had an education in game development, and while both were knowledgeable about the topic of business, neither had any idea how to make a video game. The two were inspired by the success of games like Dota, which followed a slightly atypical approach to game development. The game was constantly being updated and worked on by the developers, and its loyal fanbase would provide all the marketing it needed through creating game content and introducing the game to their friends. League of Legends was built around the free-to-play concept where players can download the game for free but can choose to purchase in-game content if they like. This model had started to become more popular in Asia but was as yet largely unproven in North American and European markets. Riot Games struggled to find a publisher that was willing to publish the game and help to pay for development costs. Most companies were unable to see where the revenue for a free-to-play game would come from and were unwilling to invest time and money into a project that was, in their eyes, very likely to lose money. Eventually, Beck and Merrill managed to find investors willing to part with more than $7 million and were able to hire the right people to put the project into motion. Unfortunately, around the same time that League of Legends released, another MOBA game, Heroes of Newerth, was launched. In the first few days of each game being launched, Heroes of Newerth was originally pulling in twice as many players. However, once the game was announced as a full-priced game, most players switched over to League of Legends. The free-to-play model was a success. In 2009, the first year of its launch, Riot Games made $1.29 million in revenue from League of Legends. This revenue came entirely from cosmetic items called skins, which changed the appearance of the player's character. By the third year of the game's release, League of Legends had made an incredible $85 million in revenue. The same year, it was bought by Chinese game publisher Tencent for more than $400 million. Since then, League of Legends has continued to grow, partly thanks to the game's free-to-play nature and also due to Riot Games' focus on eSports as a promotional tool. MOBAs such as League of Legends and Dota 2 are highly popular in the eSports community as they are incredibly fun to play for all types of players, but also have a huge amount of depth that takes a lot of skill and strategy to reach the highest level. This makes them ideal for fans who not only want to improve their own play, but also watch the best players. The thriving eSports community and Riot Games' focus on setting up their own eSports events have helped to build a core group of loyal fans while also introducing the game to millions of new fans around the world. Today, League of Legends is more than 10 years old, but still generates over $1 billion of revenue each year. Issues in eSports. As with any new sport, eSports has had its fair share of problems. If the sport is to continue to grow and gain mainstream appeal, it will need to confront these issues and try to address them where possible. For traditional sports, a lot of problems may be deep-rooted due to being part of the sport for decades. eSports has a real chance to lay a strong foundation to ensure the integrity of the sport. In this chapter, we'll be looking closely at the issues which have affected eSports and the industry. We'll be paying particularly close attention to issues that affect the integrity of the sport and what can be done to resolve them. Like any sport, the allure of victory can mean that some teams and competitors are driven to win at any cost. Esports organizations need to ensure that there are regulations in place to prevent cheating, doping, and other issues which may negatively affect the sport in the minds of fans. Gender equality is a big issue in the modern world, and women's sports are fast becoming more widely accepted by fans, sponsors, and TV networks. Video games, which have been traditionally seen as a male-focused hobby, are starting to become a lot more inclusive to women. Game developers and publishers are focusing on including all genders more than ever, and esports organizers have also tried to make events more accepting to female competitors and teams. As the sport becomes more professional and gains more mainstream appeal, it will be interesting to see how women's esports develop. In this chapter, we will be looking closely at which esports organizations are becoming more inclusive to women and what the industry can learn from traditional sports. Finally, the chapter will also be covering the topic of match fixing. We learned earlier in the course about the link between esports and betting and why esports match fixing is becoming an issue. This chapter will be taking a look at why the problem is growing and what organizations and governing bodies can do to stop it. We'll also be looking at where the responsibility of preventing match fixing lies and whether enough is being done to protect the integrity of the industry. Women in eSports. More women than ever are taking up video games as a hobby, but the world of eSports remains a fairly male-dominated space. According to a study in 2016, those who play video games around the world are 59% male and 41% female. Despite this, only around 5% of professional video game players are female. Unlike other sports, physical differences between the genders don't prevent women from taking on and beating the best players. So what exactly is stopping them? For starters, not everyone that plays video games plays them to compete. Many of those who answered yes on the survey of playing video games are likely to be casual players. These are people who might play once or twice a week and play to relax for 1 or 2 hours at most. These casual players make up a significant portion of both genders. However, it seems that more male players are likely to identify as a gamer, around 15% compared to just 6% of female video game players. In other words, female players are less likely to base their identity around playing games and as such are unlikely to pursue competitive gaming. The culture around video games is a big part of the problem. Online games, which make up the entirety of the esports industry, can be largely unwelcoming for women and new players and often harbor toxic communities. A lot of games developers are working to improve their communities by introducing bans and report functions for toxic players. Still, if a person plays a game primarily to have fun, having someone shouting at them or sending sexist messages or abuse is likely to dissuade that person from ever returning to the game. This level of online abuse that some players suffer from is stopping many women from joining or continuing to play competitive games. Game developers also need to be more mindful of the character design options that are used in the game. Many online games feature female characters, but these are often used to display female as sex objects rather than introducing well thought out and designed characters. This type of attitude is another reason why many women are put off of playing certain games and also partly contributes to the sexist abuse that they can suffer. While women competing at the highest level of esports is rare, there are still plenty of examples of top female pro players. Sasha Scarlett Hansen is one of the world's best StarCraft II players and the highest earning female esports player. After winning a female-only tournament 2 years in a row, she progressed to becoming the Canadian national champion and later on competed in the North American StarCraft Championship and the Intel Extreme Masters event in Pyeongchang, where she took the top prize. Scarlett's success shows how important female-only events are in helping women get started in the world of esports. A lot of big tournament organizers are now starting to hold events just for women to help promote women's esports and provide women with more role models to follow. The Intel Extreme Masters recently held the 5th edition of the Women's Intel Challenge Counter-Strike tournament. Other female-only events include the Girl Gamer Festival, held in cities all over the world each year. While at first glance it may seem like these events are taking away resources from mixed-gender tournaments, if they are helping more people to pick up the sport, that can only be a positive thing. As female-only esports events grow, the talent of the players will too, and soon we'll see a lot more women players competing at the highest level. For now, More sponsors need to get on board to help the sport develop, as most female players are unable to commit to the sport full-time. For now, viewing figures of female-only events are lower than those of the larger tournaments, but as more women get into esports, it only stands to grow, representing a great opportunity for sponsors.
Hi, I'm Kelly, Mrs. Violence Kelly. That's what I'm more formally known as, and I'm a 26-year-old pro female gamer.
Let's talk a little bit about how you've seen things evolve when it comes to female pro gamers since you got started.
Well, let's see here. I didn't have really any women to look up to in the pro gaming department. I always looked up to a guy and stuff like that. But as the years have progressed, there's definitely been a lot more female faces at tournaments and trying to be a pro gamer. So that's really good to see, because at first it was only like me.
How did you get involved in pro gaming?
I first got involved in pro gaming when I was really young, like around 11, 12 years old. I watched on the internet of WCG over in Korea. I got to watch a lot of StarCraft, but I started actually in Magic the Gathering through a card game at my local comic store, you know, like a lot of other people did. And through there, I just went from competitive card gaming basically to online gaming with shooters like Rainbow Six 3, Ghost Recon, and Halo.
Why do you think, when you look around here at the Call of Duty Championships, there are no female gamers? Why do you think that is?
Not a lot of girls here because there's not a lot of opportunities for them. The guys just look at them immediately and say no without even checking out their skill or talent. So I find that's just still to be the #1 reason why girls aren't on top teams like this.
I see some that are in more managerial positions, though.
Yes, there's a lot of girls in managers, coaches, marketing, community managers as well. They get along with so many people, but as well as not being taken super serious enough to compete, so that might be their downfall as well.
How do you see things evolving when you look ahead?
I see a lot in the new years for esports. I mean, you got Azubu, you got MLG, you got League of Legends, you just got all these huge names, and they're coming out of the woodworks and they're just showcasing the best talent. I think that is just gonna put us on the map as far as TV, because my ultimate goal is to see esports on television.
Like what World of Poker did with ESPN?
Exactly. And there used to be pro poker players that used to be pro StarCraft players. So if they can do it, if they can go from gaming to poker, why can't gaming go straight to TV just like poker did too? So.
What impact will the larger number of female gamers that are out there, as esports continue to grow, what will that open up, do you feel, on a professional level?
I think on a pro level, the more girls that come out, it would just show everyone how serious we are to be taken serious, because that's the thing, is we're just kind of on this lower level of mentality, and that's not really true. We all want to win, we all want to grind, we all want to be super driven, but at the same time we're not given the chance. So the more girls that come out and showcase their talent and put on a good show, a good respectful show, it'll just help everybody. It'll help out all the other women in the world in gaming too.
Do you feel like we would see maybe a separate league for females like we do with the WNBA, or do you feel like that at some point an all-girl team will just become part of it?
I think when it comes to an all-female league, we've all wanted and kind of said that we should do that, but at the same time there's so many girls that are like, I don't want to play in an all-female league, I want to play against the best, which are with the boys. But unfortunately, it's just so hard to even play against them. When you just want to even scrim, they won't even scrim you because they find you as a joke because you're a girl. So all in all, it's just still, even if you just have the semblance of a woman, they won't give you a chance at all.
When it comes to a competition like this, it's open to everyone. So theoretically, would you envision in the future like an all-female team being able to get into a tournament like this?
As far as it goes right now, I don't see an all-female team coming together and collabing to an extent. They make it for about a month or maybe in one event, and then they break up. They all, they lose interest, family gets in the way. A lot of stuff hinders you, but at the same time, you have to grind. You have to show them that you want to do this, and it's just, as much as the boys play, you have to play just like them. So roughly 17 hours a day is what I used to pull when I was competing. And I just don't see 4 other girls out there right now doing the same thing. It's really hard to have the ability to do so and to accomplish it.
It would seem, though, from a sponsorship standpoint, that there would be a lot of opportunities for a female video game team to hit a demographic that currently is kind of being ignored when you look at the sponsors aimed at the guys.
Yeah. I tried doing an all-female team. We got 29th, our first event. That's technically semi-pro. And within the next 2 months before the next tournament, we broke up. One just got disinterested. The other one wanted to play StarCraft. So again, you got to find those 4 super hardcore, dedicated females out there that want to play and place in the game of that, like of their choice. Not another game, not, go out with the boyfriend. You have to want to keep playing all day and night. It doesn't stop.
Some of these sports actually have gaming houses, and that's all they do.
Yeah, all the gaming all the time. You wake up, you game all the time. But even someone like me, I was waking up and making videos because I'm trying to also brand myself and compete. So I wasn't just competing, I was also being my own brand ambassador.
Cheating scandals. Cheating has a long history with sports and most likely always will. Whenever there is a strong incentive to win, whether that's to win prize money or fame, competitors will always try to gain an advantage. When that advantage breaks the rules, it's considered unfair, and this would be classed as cheating. Examples in traditional sports include the use of performance-enhancing drugs, trying to influence the referee, or tampering with equipment. As esports have grown and the potential rewards for winning have gotten larger, the amount of cheating has also increased. Although it may seem like something that only happens in traditional sports, the use of performance-enhancing drugs is widespread in esports. Rather than taking anabolic steroids to make them faster and stronger, some esports competitors have been found to be taking stimulants such as Adderall. These drugs increase reaction speeds, boost concentration, and prevent fatigue, helping players to not only play better, but train for longer periods of time too. Just like with anabolic steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs, the use of stimulants can result in problems such as addiction, heavy weight loss, and even heart problems. Other drugs taken to improve esports performance include propranolol and Valium, which can help to calm the player and reduce the effects of stress and adrenaline. Many former esports players have admitted that the use of performance-enhancing drugs to boost performance is incredibly prevalent. While these drugs are all banned in most major sports leagues, some esports leagues have failed to take action against them. The International Esports Federation, for example, has no regulations or rules against the use of performance-enhancing drugs in any of its licensed competitions. Other esports organizations, such as the ESL, has clamped down on the use of performance-enhancing drugs during any of its competitions. ESL conducts tests during its competitions and clearly provides a list of banned drugs on its website. If players have a legitimate prescription for a particular drug on the list, they'll need to notify the league in advance. This kind of stringent drug testing is needed if the sports want itself to be taken seriously on the world stage. The public perception of the sport is important, and if players are seen as drug cheats, it's unlikely for fans to gain an interest in the sport. Sponsors will also distance themselves from the sport, as no brand wants to be associated with cheating and performance-enhanced drugs. On top of that, many young players might feel discouraged from playing, leading to a smaller talent pool in the future. Performance-enhanced drugs aren't the only way to cheat, of course. While these drugs can have a big effect on the performance of a player, nothing is quite as powerful as the use of in-game cheats. An in-game cheat is a special form of software that can be used in games to gain an advantage. They might improve the aim of the player, make them faster, or even allow them to see through walls and other obstacles. If you have played online games at some point, you might have encountered a player using one, as they are quite easy to buy online. The use of in-game cheats is heavily frowned upon by most players, and in the eSports community, a player found to be using one will be banned for life. Esports organizations make use of anti-cheat software, which is designed to pick out suspicious behavior and allow a human team member to review footage of the game to determine if cheating occurred. Around 1/3 to 1/4 of ESL's technology budget now goes into their anti-cheat systems as they try to stay one step ahead of players looking to gain an unfair advantage. As the rewards for success keep increasing, we'll likely see more examples of cheating in the future, and it's important that esports organizers are strong on this issue now and establish a clear code of conduct for players to follow. Match fixing. Gambling has been a big part of the esports industry since its early years. Today, with the industry generating more than $1 billion a year, the amount of money gambled on esports is around $14 billion. From seeing the amount of money involved in esports gambling, especially when compared to the kind of money that some low-level players make, it's easy to predict that match fixing might take hold. In the last few years, there have been multiple match-fixing scandals that have threatened the integrity of the sport and damaged its reputation for many fans and potential sponsors. According to Ian Smith, a lawyer and integrity commissioner at the Esports Integrity Coalition, ESIC, illegal betting on esports events could be worth as much as $2 billion per year. According to Smith, match fixing, particularly in China, is rife within esports. Reports of suspicious betting activity are one of the main signs of match fixing, and bookmakers will often report this activity to the relevant authorities if they suspect match fixing may be occurring. Suspicious betting activity is usually where a sudden flurry of large bets are placed on one competitor in particular, usually on the lower-ranked player, which would have the best odds. Match fixing occurs where a criminal, usually affiliated with a larger group, approaches a player and asks them to lose a game against a particular opponent. The player will be paid a large amount of money, and the criminals will profit by betting on the opponent. While normally match fixing is more of a problem in the lower levels of sport, where there are fewer people paying attention, the scandal has also found its way to the top of the sport. Lee Life Sung-hyun started playing StarCraft II competitively at the age of 14. He soon joined a professional team and established himself as one of the world's top players as he became the youngest ever winner of the Global StarCraft League. Life was hailed as a hero in his home country of South Korea and managed to accumulate close to $500,000 in prize money in just a few years. Despite his impressive reputation and ability, Life threw his career away by accepting an offer of $62,000 to fix 2 games in the Korean eSports Association Cup. While Sung-hyun may have been an incredibly gifted esports player, he was only 19 years old and had grown accustomed to a life of earning fast money. He became involved in gambling and had apparently racked up gambling debts. He was offered the chance to fix games in order to pay his debts, and although $62,000 doesn't seem like that much, it was still 7 times the amount available for winning the Korean Esports Association Cup. Life was arrested in 2016 and sentenced to 18 months in prison. On top of this, he was also fined $62,000 and had his StarCraft World Championship stripped from him. The story of Life shows us that it's not only lower levels of esports that need to be cautious about match fixing and the problems with gambling. Players need to be educated from a young age on how to manage their money and, similarly to other sports, should be informed about the dangers of match fixing. Sports betting companies should also take more responsibility for addressing the problem and should be working with the ESIC to help preserve the integrity of esports. Event organizers also need to be mindful of teams and analyze the behavior of players during matches to stay on top of the problem. Match fixing is potentially a lot easier to hide in esports, making it a big challenge for organizers, but keeping the integrity of the industry is extremely important if esports is going to continue to grow.
Life was one of the best StarCraft 2 players to ever touch a mouse and keyboard.
Oh my god, this Zergling control is so good from Life. He's narrowly avoiding the Banelings. He avoids them yet again. Will any of them connect? No, the Queen falls. And Life, oh my god, is playing this out spot on.
He was dominant.
He gets us around the links.
Wow.
They're holding it up.
What control!
Holy crap.
Life, what on earth are you? Not human, that's for damn sure.
He was adored. And he was on top of the world. That is, until he was convicted of match fixing and sentenced to 18 months in prison, all at just 19 years old. Life made a name for himself in early 2012.
Is actually just gonna play the shortest game ever. GG!
Life catches him completely off guard here. Jinro is surprised, and this attack was really well thought out. I'm quite surprised how Life managed to pull this off.
And the build order here for Hapro was a little bit strange. GG, Hapro getting a later Spire, really committing to it. His opponent, though, had all the preparations in place.
Life is too strong today. He is certainly on a roll.
GG!
He takes down 5 opponents. Life with an all kill.
But Life's early wins were just him warming up. At GSL Season 4, he showed the StarCraft community what he was truly capable of, upsetting big names like Marine King and Teja.
When that happens, sometimes you have to let them feed you. You know what I mean?
You have to play defense against Life. This is not working.
GG. Wow.
Oh god, indeed he has Tasteless. Teja, this is going to be his death throes here. This is the last of his army of Fungal. GG.
Good luck in the final.
Life boasted an 18-5 record heading into the finals, giving him a shot at the Royal Road at his first GSL. The Royal Road is when a rookie player wins a major tournament for the first time they're eligible to compete. It's an incredibly difficult task that few have ever achieved. But Life's opponent in the grand finals was his toughest challenge yet. In a best-of-7 series, the duo went back and forth, the new generation versus the veteran talent, trading map for map. Life's aggressive play won him 2 maps early, but MVP wasn't phased and took the next 3.
Yeah, they absolutely can, especially once he punches him up like this. GG!
Realizes that, in fact, he's taken so much damage, and MVP has enough. And MVP saying,
Facing elimination, Life won 2 maps back-to-back to bring down MVP and become the first and youngest player to walk the GSL Royal Road.
And our champion,
Life.
the first Royal Roader, is receiving the check, 50,000 USD.
Super ballin'.
Prior to Life, conventional Zerg play relied on big late-game armies with units like Broodlords and Infestors. Life went in the opposite direction, building cheap armies quickly and using a fast and aggressive style of play to catch his enemies off guard. He revolutionized the game.
Life was the guy who was going to show you the new way to play Zerg. You know, this more advanced way where you're very active, your micro is incredibly precise, you're everywhere on the map, and you're always trying to make things happen. You're not a passive player anymore. You're an aggressive player. You're forcing the action.
He really had a killer instinct as a player, that he would finish games as soon as he would see the opportunity to be able to do it, rather than taking the risk of prolonging the game and maybe allowing your player to come back, your opponent to come back. And his control was just beyond anybody else's. So what he did with Zerglings in particular was unheard of, and actually we haven't really seen anybody do quite the same he has when it comes to that again.
After GSL Season 4, Life was on a roll, winning his first tournaments outside of South Korea. Those victories earned Life roughly $82,000, and the wins kept coming.
Oh, Naniwa continue to hold on. There's an overseer behind the Hydralisk about to be morphed in. The Mothership core is gone. The DTs are the last real units that Naniwa has. GG! Startail Life is the Intel Extreme Masters New York City at Comic-Con champion.
Impact barely hanging on the entrance. The Lings spill in, and there's not much left that Impact can do. And GG! Life is our DreamHack Bucharest champion.
Can MMA make the hole? This is an incredibly tense moment right now. 3 Banelings about to morph.
Those 3 Banelings could be huge. They go up on 1 SCV, so that's not so good yet, but look at this.
There's nothing here.
MMA's SCV is going down. He's about to lose. GG! And Life is your world champion of StarCraft 2.
Between October 2012 and November 2014, Life won $328,000 in prize money alone. Money, status, and thousands of adoring fans. Life was on top of the fucking world. Until he wasn't. In October 2015, the Special Investigations Unit of the Changwon Regional Prosecution Service released a report detailing match fixing in StarCraft 2. The report highlighted the arrests of mid-tier players Yoda, Byong, and their coach Gerard, alongside 4 middlemen and 2 financial backers.
They went into it and they discovered really a terrible match fixing ring. A bunch of players were caught on Prime, which had been like a fan favorite team, and it was particularly bad because they discovered that the coach, due to some being in financial duress, he became like the coach and team owner. He became the middleman between these people who wanted to pay players to match fix.
The community reaction was vitriolic, and Kespa came down on them hard, banning them for life. But then, StarCraft 2's biggest star was charged and convicted of match fixing.
One of the 2 pro gamers arrested as part of this investigation is 19-year-old Life, one of StarCraft 2's top 50 players with a number of achievements under his belt.
The arrest of former Blizzard World Champion Lee Life Seong-hung has been followed with an indictment.
On January 29, 2016, Life was arrested and charged with match fixing during Season 1 of the 2015 Kespa Cup. Life was fined roughly $60,000, the equivalent of what he was paid to throw the games. And he was given an 18-month prison sentence.
When it came out it was Life, I was really angry about it, because he had, no reason to do it other than that he got himself in a very bad situation in his life with his gambling and all that. But if he would have been a little bit smarter, he would have been set pretty well in life as a very, very young, very successful player.
He served 2 months before the sentence was suspended and reduced to probation. And if you're thinking, what the hell, did Life set some cruel precedent or something? Well, no, not really. You see, back in 2010, one of the greatest old guard StarCraft players, Savior, was caught up in his own match-fixing scandal that rocked the community. He, 10 other players, and 1 coach were fined thousands of dollars, banned from ever competing in Blizzard or Kespa events, and were handed jail sentences.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad, just the fact that to know that it happened again. I mean, I'm sure people suspected that, that one round of arrests wouldn't have stamped it out. So when in 2015, the Prime scandal happens, people are like, it's just disheartening to know the man, after 4 years later, not much has changed. What lessons have really been learned? Fundamentally, there's still the incentive to for these guys to take money and take dives.
Let's be clear here. Match fixing sucks, and Life knew what he was doing. But Life didn't actually throw any matches. Reportedly, he threw individual games while still winning the series outright. We're not disputing the ban or the fine because this is a crime and the punishment has to be severe. But prison seems like a little much in this case. Because when the streams turn off and the confetti is fallen, we're still talking about stadiums full of computers and young adults who are prone to making mistakes. And does the reputation of a game mean more than the future of a 19-year-old kid?
The future of esports. While we have seen a lot of continued growth from the esports industry over the last 10 years, the sport is still incredibly young and still has a long way to go according to a lot of analysts. In the course so far, we have examined everything currently affecting the industry and things that have taken place in the past. In this chapter, we'll be taking a closer look at the future and what it might hold for the esports industry. We may not be able to predict exactly what the future will be like, but we can make a pretty good guess. We'll be looking at ways other sports have developed over time to examine how the esports industry may adapt and change over the years. Will the industry keep growing? Now, it seems as though the growth is unstoppable, but at some point, the industry has to reach market saturation. We'll look at why growth may slow down and what will happen if it does. We'll also be looking at what factors might continue to drive the development of the industry. We'll also be looking at how the demographics of sports fans and esports fans overlap and whether traditional sports will be competing with esports in the future. In 10 or 20 years, given the choice between traditional sports and esports, what will a person aged between 18 and 25 choose? We'll be examining how esports could affect sports viewership and what sports teams might do to prevent this. In regular sports, grassroots development is a huge part of the game and a reason why athletes are now better than ever. Currently, in esports, development usually happens just through playing casually. In the future, will we see more coaches available for young esports players, and will esports teams start their own youth development programs? In the US, will we start to see college esports programs that offer development and training to the best young esports players? We'll also be looking at franchising and whether this league format will soon take over the esports event industry. Right now, there are several major esports competitions in the US that are switching to the franchise model. This is a plus for investors, but does it provide as much value to the fans? We'll be looking at whether the franchise model will continue to expand in the esports industry and whether promotion and relegation-based leagues have a future. Finally, the chapter will be going into detail on changes to technology and how it will affect esports. The rise of esports has coincided with an incredible rise in the quality and availability of video and computer technology. This has helped to not only make games better than ever before, but also make them more affordable. The internet has also helped to raise the profile of esports through streaming sites and content sharing platforms. Can technology continue to make esports more exciting? And what can the likes of virtual reality do to the industry? Continued growth. Very few industries have been able to match the growth of the esports industry in recent years. From $130 million in revenue back in 2012 to more than $1 billion today, that's a remarkable rise, and many reports predict that it will continue to grow over the next few years. But is this growth sustainable, and at what point will it slow down? Some signs have been spotted that might suggest not everyone in the industry is doing so well. Optic Gaming, one of the world's biggest esports teams, was owned by Infinite Esports and Entertainment and had several high-profile tournament wins across multiple games. Despite the team's success, Infinite Esports and Entertainment mismanaged finance, misreported profits, and ended up owing millions of dollars to investors. Optic Gaming was disbanded as their parent company went into administration, and while their players went on to join new teams, it's a sign that even the best teams aren't safe from the risk of insolvency and poor financial management. On top of this, esports remain under the full control of games publishers. We've mentioned in previous chapters, the sport of football isn't owned by anyone, but Riot Games own League of Legends, and they get to say who plays it, who shows it, and how it's used commercially, as it's their intellectual property. In 2018, games publisher Blizzard Entertainment announced that it would be ending developer support and upcoming esports events for its MOBA games Heroes of the Storm. It wasn't as popular as other titles in the genre, but it still had a lot of fans and players who played professionally. After Blizzard cancelled the event, they also effectively ended the careers of these players. Blizzard made the decision to focus its efforts on the development of its other titles, but it's a stark reminder to esports enthusiasts everywhere that they are not in control of the games that they play. A sport like tennis could never be cancelled simply because one company didn't want to dedicate its resources to the game anymore, and even if it was, people could still play tennis. With video games, it's another matter entirely, and it raises questions about the future of the industry. Will people continue to risk it all to push for a professional playing career when they know that the game they specialize in could be cancelled at any time without warning? Government regulations could also pose a serious threat to the growth of the industry. China recently brought in new rules to limit the amount of time young people spend playing games. China is one of the biggest markets in the world for esports and the fastest growing. Despite that, the government is wary of the potential adverse effects of young people spending too much time indoors playing video games. Children under the age of 18 are now banned from playing games between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. There's also a 90-minute per day limit on how long they can, although this is increased to 3 hours a day on national holidays. In-game purchases are also being targeted by Chinese lawmakers, and monthly purchases are capped at either $27 or $57 depending on the age of the child. While it's unlikely that these sorts of measures will be enacted anywhere else in the world, China does make up a significant portion of the esports market. If the government introduces further restrictions, it could considerably slow the growth of the esports industry. A slowing or shrinking esports industry could lead to more teams or organizations folding. We have seen already how many independent esports event organizers struggle to make profits, and these organizations will most likely be the first to shut down. This will give publishers further control over the market and is likely to seriously affect the chances for esports to develop further. While these factors could lead to slowing down the growth of the industry, plenty of other factors may contribute to its increasing growth. The growing number of mobile esports games, plus how easy it is to watch esports streams on mobiles, is likely to lead to more esports fans than ever, particularly in developing countries. Competing with regular sports. We have seen how much the esports industry has grown, but how does it now compare to traditional sports? In 2019, the global esports industry was worth more than $1 billion. The global sports industry, meanwhile, was worth around $500 billion, quite a large difference. However, while the money generated might still be a long way off, the pull that esports has over its fans is increasing, and more fans than ever are getting into the sport. The global esports audience reached around 400 million people in 2019. Just under half of that is die-hard fans, while just over half are occasional viewers. This number is larger than the total number of viewers of American football, which had around 256 million viewers in 2019. This shows just how far esports have come in a short amount of time. As the competition continues to develop, new fans will be drawn in, and regular sports will soon be competing for viewing figures. While the demographics of sports fans and esports fans may not directly overlap, more young people than ever are gaining an interest in esports before they get interested in sports. Over the next few years, we may start seeing the effects of this as more people choose to tune in into esports events over traditional sports. Younger people these days are just as likely to be interested in the biggest esports stars as they are for star athletes. The ease at which esports fans can watch their favorite events is a big reason for this shift. Though sports are confined to expensive cable channels most of the time, esports is free to access on major streaming platforms such as Twitch. The platforms also allow for fans to watch and interact with their favorite players whenever they want, offering something that traditional sports just can't match. To ensure that sports keep pulling in viewers, many major sports teams and organizations are now starting to take the growth of esports seriously. The former Premier League executive chairman and one of the most important people in English football, Richard Scudamore, recently called esports one of the biggest threats to keeping young people engaged with the sport. Some of the biggest football teams in the world, including Manchester City, Barcelona, West Ham, Wolfsburg, and AS Roma, all have esports teams. These professional sports teams have recognized that esports are highly engaging for fans and see them as a way to connect to the younger generations. If someone becomes a fan of the Barcelona esports team, then they are also more likely to follow Barcelona Football Club and vice versa. By capitalizing on the trend rather than directly competing with esports, clubs stand a better chance of future growth. Outside of starting their own esports teams, other sports clubs may want to try engaging more with younger fans and offering deals on tickets to young fans. The most popular sports have become increasingly expensive for fans across Europe and North America. A sports fan could stay in and watch esports events for free online rather than attending a game. Clubs and organizations need to recognize this and make sure that their fans are not being priced out of watching the sport. Grassroots development programs. Professional competitive gaming is developing at a fast pace, but the importance of the amateur scene cannot be overlooked. If players are to develop into top-tier competitors, they need to have the right guidance and coaching from a young age. Just as there are coaches to focus and develop the skills of young players in traditional sports, esports coaches are needed to turn young players into future professionals. As the sports becomes more professional and the potential for prize money increases, more countries are starting to focus their efforts on developing successful esports teams. South Korea kickstarted the esports industry back in 2000, and the government was directly responsible setting up the governing body and improving conditions for players. This helped to improve the grassroots esports scene in the country and led to South Korea producing some of the world's best esports players over the years. The development of talent in South Korea has led to bigger sponsorships and events taking place in the country. If countries want to support the growth of esports, they'll need to take steps to ensure that the amateur scene can thrive. Steps including helping to establish venues for esports to take place, setting regulations that mean players aren't taken advantage of, and actively working with leaders in the local esports community to ensure that coaches and teams are supported. In Sweden, the government has been preparing for the growth of esports by educating young people and establishing a clear code of conduct for players, organizations, and parents. The code of conduct was produced with the help of 12 major esports organizations and aims to promote good behavior and make esports more welcoming and inclusive. One particular school in Sweden has even added esports to the curriculum, and students can learn the tactics and strategies used in some of the most popular esports games. The classes are designed to prepare students for a potential career in esports, although they also learn skills such as teamwork, communication, and handling pressure that will serve them well outside of the esports industry. In North America, sports development usually happens in high schools and colleges across the country. High school sports are taken very seriously, and college sports sometimes have higher attendances than fully professional teams. Colleges across North America have seen the wave of popularity that esports has experienced and have started to invest in the sport. Colleges across North America have seen the wave of popularity that esports has experienced and have started to invest in the sport. Many colleges have esports teams, but some of these are now funded by the university, which pays for equipment, travel expenses, training facilities, and coaching. The University of California recently opened its own esports arena and even offers scholarships to promising esports professionals. A scholarship is a perfect opportunity for a young player to receive a degree while also working towards turning pro after graduating. Once their pro career is over, they will still have their education to support themselves financially later on. This level of support is needed for esports as becoming a professional is still very high risk as the competition is fierce and the rewards for lower level players are slim.
Esports is so new. Back then there wasn't a collegiate scene at all. There was no collegiate teams, nothing like that.
Not many schools were giving much support to it. You know, a lot of schools would just give like a room, like a random room somewhere, and like, oh, here's your esports team, you know, in the basement or whatever.
I never expected gaming to become part of my college experience, and I definitely did not expect any like chance for a full-ride scholarship.
When I came here, I realized that, you know, the president is on board. We have a general manager that has pro experience. We have professional coaches. I guess they're really committed to this and it's something they really want to do.
We
started this program exactly a year ago. Before Harrisburg University, I was a professional League of Legends coach for Team 8, and then I realized that there was a lot of lack of structure. Collegiate esports as a whole has really only been around for 5 years, maybe 6. We've gone from seeing maybe in the first 3 years only like 20 or 30 programs, to now we're seeing 200 or 250 varsity programs, and that's a big deal.
First time I stepped foot on Harrisburg University's campus was back in December of 2018. They asked me if I wanted to fly out just to check out the program, see what it was like. I found myself in this training facility and overwhelmed by all of the dedication, commitment, and vision that everyone here at Harrisburg University had.
So coming out here, this is like the main area. So we have like all these kind of computer desk pods. League of Legends is like on the left side over here, so these 3, and then Overwatch are the rest kind of in the other corners. This is our official like VOD review room. Gather everybody around, we can put like videos up there and watch. We have some like crazy massage thingies in here. This is like the jackhammer, so you like massage your arms. And then it goes to like level 2, which is like crazy. I couldn't even, like that hurts me. All right. This is like our little side gamer room. So if we want to play like Smash Brothers or play anything that's like not our main game, we can go in here. I have the Pac-Man high score, so that's pretty epic. These are our trophies. Well, this is the championship one that I won. Pretty cool. Everybody has like their own funky mouse and keyboards. It's all personalized. This is my crab. This is one of the characters I play. I have a little guy. And on this side, we have our like 17 TVs. So if we want to put like videos on there or like tournaments or streams, we can do that.
So people traditionally see esports players as somebody that only plays video games, and that's like the only thing that they do. That's actually not the case.
They train just like any other college sport. They do physical training, they have practices, they have to maintain their grades, they have to do physical therapy, they have to do preventative training so that they don't have injuries.
I've played a bunch of sports in the past. I've played a lot of soccer and tennis. I can say that like a lot of the team stuff is very, very similar. A lot of like the dynamics I have with my players and my friends is very, very similar.
I'm pulling 3, 2, 1.
A lot of the operational stuff is fairly similar actually. We've got someone like a general manager, which would be our program director Chad. We've got coaches, we've got nutritionists.
We offer a healthy meal plan that makes them actually feel good. We give them gym memberships to be able to go to the gym, but then we offer a physical trainer that helps them figure out what they want to do. Are you taking care of your wrists and your arms and your elbows and the things that you're using while you're playing the game? I personally think there is an advantage for having a physical component. I talk a lot about like the quality of practice and not just like the quantity or how much time you're doing it. Have you ever just had that feeling where like, I feel good today, where it's like, I feel like I've slept, I felt like I've been fairly active. When you come to practice or when you feel pretty energized, it makes a difference.
There's no difference between any college sport and esports.
Putting together a schedule for a student is actually pretty tough. You have to get their classes in between 9 to 5, so they need to be able to practice afterwards. And then study halls where everybody's together to make sure they're doing their work.
Wake up at 8, eat something, go to class. After class, like I usually have class, gym, and then class. Then I come back here.
I'll make some food because I'm usually pretty hungry. And I got to eat a lot before we have like our 4-hour-long practice to keep me kind of energized.
It's a lot more hard work than I had imagined. I play 6 to 8 hours and that doesn't even count how much time I put outside the game. So I watch other players play. I watch myself play to critique myself. I come from traditional sports and I used to spend like 4 to 6 hours with just traditional sports, with working out and watching tape. But with esports, it feels like every second of the day I'm constantly working.
I definitely feel that burden where I have to do this and that, and after school I have to kind of practice. After practice I go home and I'm just too tired. I feel like the student athlete is the exact same way, and I feel for the student athletes. It's a lot of work.
One of the biggest challenges I have is trying to help my students balance esports and academics.
They're students first. It's kind of like any sport. It's like how many people go from D1 to be a professional, maybe 1%, something like that. So the same thing applies for esports.
Esports is fairly new, so it is quite risky to just jump into esports without having any kind of backbone or plan B, really.
Players' careers right now are so short that a lot of them will have the chance to still use your college degree.
And so these students come here in the hope that, they can pursue their passion in esports while also securing for themselves more realistic and viable future through their education.
It's probably one of the best things that's happening collegiate-wise to people that are trying to go pro. I never really had much competitive experience, so being able to get a degree while I learn and doing all this really helps.
And who is going to step up? The zone's being removed now. Pile driver.
When you think about building community, you need something that people can rally behind. And in this case, it is esports.
The Hugh Invitational is an example of that. Like, we're going to have 64 teams here in Harrisburg to compete all in person. That's larger than any other tournament for collegiate in the area by far.
You don't realize until you come to our facility here or come to a tournament how many students are really into this, how many high schools are playing it, how many colleges are involved in the tournament, and you walk around our campus and you see HU Storm shirts and jackets and sweaters everywhere.
Can I get a huge round of applause for these two teams? They're going to give us some great games tonight.
Enough of the people who I've met and talked with there know who I am and know I'm on the team. And if they play the game, I'll have plenty of conversations about it.
I think without the scholarship, I probably wouldn't be going to school. I come from a poor background, so being able to even afford school and go to school while being in a different state and being at such a prestigious program is really, really good.
You're going to see a lot of really talented programs that are going to be able to place people in jobs that people don't expect, because people think esports is just playing video games when there's an entire industry around it.
Franchising. Traditionally, sports and esports leagues have been built around the promotion and relegation system. This involves a set number of teams playing against each other over a season. Each win will earn points, and over a season, teams accumulate points which affect their position on a table. At the end of the season, the team with the most points is the champion and will be promoted to a higher league if there's one available. Teams at the bottom will be relegated to a lower league if there's one available. This system has been around for a long time, and it allows teams to improve over time and climb the rankings. It rewards prolonged success while also ensuring that the top league always consists of the best possible players and teams. With esports, many leagues currently use either promotion and relegation or a qualifying circuit that any team, no matter the size or popularity, can enter. If a team is good enough to compete with the best, they will be able to advance into the later stages of the top competitions. While this is still the dominant league format in Europe and Asian sports, in North America, most major sports leagues use a different league system. This franchise system involves the biggest current teams paying a fee to be entered into the league. Once a part of the league, there's no danger of relegation, and although teams are rewarded for their success, there is no way for new teams to enter the league except for in special circumstances, such as one of the existing teams disbanding. This franchise system is already popular with North American sports, but has since gained popularity with esports. Although esports started out strong in South Korea and Asia, North America is currently the biggest market for professional video games. Many of the biggest games studios, including Blizzard, Riot Games, Activision, and many more, are all based in North America. These publishers ultimately have control over the sports and can choose which league format to use. Franchising gives more stability to the league and the teams involved. For investors, this is a good thing, and the proponents of franchising claim that it will help boost investment into esports. According to Bryce Blum, who works as a lawyer and advisor to many professional esports teams, what franchising really gives is stability for the teams and a level of commitment to whoever is running the league. This kind of format means that investors are more comfortable investing as there is no danger that the team they invest millions of dollars into will be relegated later on. Teams can rely more on a regular amount of revenue and don't need to worry about losing fans or sponsorships. In 2018, Blizzard restarted its Overwatch League, one of the most popular esports competitions in the world, as a franchised league. 12 franchise slots worth $20 million each were sold to professional esports teams around the world. These fees only cover the first season of the competition. If a team wants to continue playing in the premier Overwatch League in the world, they'll need to keep paying fees. These fees will likely continue to rise as the league grows in popularity, and while this may be good for Blizzard, it puts the squeeze on smaller teams. Considering the top prize for 2018's Overwatch League was $1 million, the majority of teams will have to pay franchise fees from money provided by sponsors and investors. While franchising is growing in popularity for esports game publishers, fans should be wary of supporting franchise leagues. This league format rewards the richest teams, not necessarily the best, and takes the spotlight away from some of the smaller teams that might otherwise have been able to compete. With how much control game publishers have over esports, it's likely that a lot of the biggest games will soon have a franchise league, as this format directly benefits them the most. Technological improvements. Technology has already had a large impact on the growth of esports over the years. And as it continues to improve, new fans will be drawn to the sport. In the last 2 decades, esports has really taken off across the world, and this is largely thanks to the power of the internet. Better internet access and faster internet speeds have created a revolution, and many people now spend a significant portion of their daily lives online. The internet is where most fans of esports connect with the sport, watching through video sharing sites, social media, or Twitch. The social element of the sport is very important and a big part of its popularity. Twitch combines social media with live streaming, allowing viewers to chat with other viewers and the host of the stream. As Twitch and other streaming services get better at integrating social features, esports could become an even bigger part of many people's lives. As we discussed in earlier chapters, the improvements in mobile technology have led to more people than ever watching esports. As mobile use becomes more common in developing countries, mobile gaming and esport viewership will continue to expand into new markets. One of the big technologies that is poised to change the video game industry is virtual reality. Virtual reality allows a player to become fully immersed in a game world. Rather than using a controller or keyboard, the player controls in-game movements with their own real movements. While this technology is still being developed, it has a lot of potential not just for playing games, but also for people interested in watching them. Virtual reality technology is currently being trialed in sports such as basketball to give people a courtside seat experience without needing to leave the house. A similar feature could be added to games, allowing esports fans to not just watch the game on the screen, but view what's going on from inside the game itself. This level of interaction between the fans and the sport could be essential in helping it break through into more traditional audiences. Virtual reality still has a relatively high barrier of entry due to the cost of equipment. However, that didn't stop more than 300,000 people watching a recent VR broadcast of the Intel Extreme Masters competition. There are a lot of potential ways that VR can be used to create a more immersive experience for fans, and while the technology is still improving, it is already showing its value to esports organizations. Augmented reality is another technology which has been used in both sports and video games. It allows for graphics or images to be superimposed on the real world. In sports, it's often used by broadcasters to add statistics, scores, or the path of the ball over the live footage. At live esports events, augmented reality has been used to create 3D characters from the game and place them on the stage alongside the players who control them. This effect really adds to the spectacle of a live event and improves the experience for fans in the arena and those watching on the live stream. Augmented reality can also be implemented through mobile phone apps. These make use of the camera to add effects to the user's surroundings. For esports fans, many of whom watch events on their mobiles, this technology has a lot of potential to enhance the viewing experience. This utilization of mobile phones when showing esports events also gives the potential for organizers to deliver targeted advertising through the phone app, increasing the advertising revenue of the event.
Good evening, esports fans. Welcome to the E-League Injustice 2 World Championship presented by PS4. The Justice League are here. They want you to get hyped.
So we're all about this engagement with the fans and what can we really do that excites them. Being able to take these, these classic characters that we've all grown up and loved, being able to bring them to life for these fans, having Superman actually fly off from the stage and break our studio walls and have the rocks come falling down, having the camera cut through the crowd and all of a sudden Batman slams down on the ground. Those are things that the crowd just loses their minds over.
He's here. He's here. He's popping in and boom. He's popping up.
The Future Group is super excited to be working on this production with Turner Studios, E-League, and NetherRealm to bring Injustice 2 characters into the broadcast using mixed reality. The tool of mixed reality makes so much sense for us to come up with all these new engaging, creative stories to tell. Turner Sports has given the Future Group the opportunity to push boundaries on the future of what esports broadcasts are going to be all about.
Our main goal here at E-League is to bring fans a new experience and a new way to engage with these games. It's all about first-rate production, quality content that this audience craves and hasn't really had before. We've been lucky to be able to partner with some really creative minds like the Future Group and with Turner Studios to kind of help us push the envelope. At our core, we're all fans. We're excited to keep working on this, though. You guys stay tuned. Much more to come.
Conclusion. Let's recap what you've learned from the course. By now, you should have a good, clear understanding of not just what esports are, but how the industry works. In our first chapter, we explored exactly how esports began and saw how, as video games improved, so did the competitive element. Competition is an important part of our society, something that's shown by the popularity of sports. As esports have developed, they've turned from something that only a few people enjoy to something that millions of people don't just take part in, but also watch. Part of this success has been driven by improvements in game production technology, such as better graphics, more interesting gameplay, and new genres of game. A lot of the success of esports has also been driven by the internet. This has allowed players from all over the world to be able to compete against each other without leaving their home. The internet has allowed people to learn new in-game skills, practice those skills, and then use them to beat the best players. As the internet has gotten faster, the potential for new types of games has risen, such as the Battle Royale format. This game type features up to 100 players on a single game, each fighting to be the last one left. Popularized by PUBG, the format is now used by games like Fortnite and Call of Duty, both of which have amassed millions of players and billions in revenue. The amount of money involved in esports has grown as the audience has grown. Most game publishers now recognize esports as a way to promote and build revenue from a game over time, giving them less need to develop and release new games, saving them money in the long run. Games like Dota and StarCraft were some of the first to adopt this model. And once game publishers saw the success that esports were having in South Korea, they brought it over to North America. Over time, esports have helped to make the games industry better for players. Developers now devote a lot of time and resources into listening to the concerns and wishes of players, adjusting the features of the game to not just cater to esports professionals, but also the fan base. This close relationship with the fans is part of why esports have thrived so much. While regular sports fans are rarely able to interact directly with their favorite athletes and clubs, many esports fans feel a close connection to their favorite games, organizations, and players thanks to regular interaction. Many sports organizations are now starting to realize that they may need to directly compete with esports for the attention of fans in the future. Sports clubs are beginning to adopt a more fan-centric approach and are building stronger connections with fans using social media. These methods are important if sports are to still be as successful in the future. Sports fans may outnumber esports fans for now, but the gap between the two is growing smaller each year. While it's true that esports have come a long way in just 20 years, there is still a lot of work to be done to professionalize the industry. It's unlikely that esports will ever be free from the influence that game publishers have over the leagues and competitions. Despite this, esports still needs a single governing body which sets rules and a code of conduct to help address problems within the esports community. Player behavior, including toxicity, is an issue that prevents a lot more people from getting involved in esports. While this problem is endemic to video games and not just the professional leagues, the pro players do need to set a strong example for their fans to follow. Issues such as match fixing, doping, and cheating are also big problems with the sport that may prevent more sponsors from investing in teams and players in the future. While the problem is being addressed, it seems that game publishers can do more to solve it by working with esports organizations and making sure that foul play is removed from the industry. With such a fast-growing industry, those working in esports must understand how to adapt to changes as they occur. Being able to predict change is also essential, and we can look at the growth of other sports for ideas of how the esports industry may look in the future. Although there are lots of things that could potentially hold the industry back, for now, the future of esports is bright.